Welcome to Books versus Movies, the podcast where I set out to answer the age-old question, is the book really always better than the movie? I'm Lluvia, an actress and book lover based out of New York City, and today I will be talking about Romper el Circulo, or It Ends With Us, by Colleen Hoover, and its 2024 adaptation, It Ends With Us. All right, y'all. I have a lot of feelings about this book, and am I gonna get as heated as the After We Collided episode? No. But I will say I had no interest in reading this book, but when the movie came out, and I had no interest in watching the movie, but I was like, you know what? This is the perfect opportunity to find out for myself what the big deal is. Now, I had heard, and the main reason I had no interest in reading this book was because I had heard many, many times that this book glamorizes abuse, and we all know how I feel about that. Again, refer back to the After We Collided episode to hear my full thoughts on that. But so I was like, you know what? This is what I keep hearing, but I'm not gonna know for sure until I read it, until I watch the movie, and I discover for myself. And if anything, we'll just have another rant episode where I continue to educate people. But that is not, I do have complicated feelings or about this book and this movie, and I will get into the glamorization aspect of it later. But just wanted to give that little disclaimer. All right, so I did have to read it in Spanish because this is a very popular book, and after reading it, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why. But anyway, this is just okay. You know what? We're just gonna get started because we should just get started. All right, so It Ends With Us was first published in 2016, and it follows Lily, who is our protagonist. She's had a difficult life growing up, but that doesn't mean that she isn't starting to live the life she wants to live. And her life seems to just get better after she meets Ryle Kincaid, a hot neurosurgeon who shows interest in her, and they start dating, and things are going so well. Ryle has expressed many times that he has no interest in dating, but there's something about Lily that turns him into an honest man. However, things start happening in their relationship that have her questioning whether or not she should be with Ryle, especially after she reunites with Atlas Corrigan, her first love. The more she reminisces about her past with Atlas and Ryle's ugly side starts to come out, the more she realizes that her life maybe isn't as perfect as she thought. The 2024 adaptation of It Ends With Us stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni and is directed by Justin Baldoni as well. And it follows a woman named Lily, who's reunited with her first love after starting a relationship with the nice neurosurgeon. And as things start happening, she must realize that she has to make a choice to better her future. So yeah, I mean, the film is overall a pretty faithful adaptation of the book. Nothing major that, well, I mean, we're going to talk about the changes as always, but this is, after having a few adaptations, and I was like, I don't know how to talk about this. It's nice to just go back to the tried and true formula of, you know what, this is a faithful adaptation and these are the changes. So the film starts off with Lily at her father's funeral, and her mother asks her to give the eulogy. She doesn't know what to say, so she gets up on the podium and ends up just leaving because she doesn't have anything good to say about her father. And then we cut to her on a rooftop in Boston. Well, the book skips all that, and we start straight on the roof. We do get told about what happened at the funeral a few hours earlier, and that she also just did not say anything, except in the book she just stays on the podium until finally someone takes her off. She doesn't just leave on her own. But the book starts us off on the rooftop, and the film starts off with the funeral scene before cutting to the roof. And I just want to say, okay, I should probably just say this because it just really boggles my mind. I had heard rumors of Colleen Hoover's naming ability, like the way she names her characters, and I didn't realize how bad it was until I read this book, and I realized that our main character is named Lily Blossom Bloom, and she's a florist. Yeah, great name there, Colleen. Anyway, so yeah, Lily Blossom Bloom meets Ryle on this rooftop. It is a private rooftop in that it is an apartment building, so no one should be on that rooftop except people that live in this apartment building, but she somehow gets up there, and because she needs a place to think and her place isn't good enough, so she magically ends up on this rooftop, and Ryle shows up and they meet. And I was very surprised at how much is revealed in this rooftop scene in the book, because it just comes right out and says it. So the main driving factor of this book is, or the main storyline involves Lily and Ryle's relationship, and it turns out that Ryle is abusive. And we're gonna get into like little different nuances about why people thought it glamorizes abuse, but it is the story of an abusive relationship. And I will say that apparently, okay, I'm just gonna go right out and say it. I think one of the reasons that this book gets accused of glamorizing abuse is because this is technically labeled as a romance book. It even won the Goodreads Choice Award in 2016 for Best Romance. And when the main love story that is making up this romance consists of an abusive one, I can see why that bothers me. I was under the impression that the abuse is kind of a twist, a plot twist in the book, so much so that people, when it was like kind of spoiled for the film, although not very well, and I'll get into that, people were upset that. So when I saw the trailer of It Ends With Us, there is a scene in which Ryle, like, you see him hit Lily. And so, I mean, I already knew this, that the main focus was abuse, but had I not known that before all this controversy, I would have known that by looking at the trailer, at least that particular trailer. That's the only trailer I ever saw. I don't know if other trailers edited this out, because I know that there was like fans of the book were really, really upset that this was getting revealed in the trailer, because it's like, no, it's supposed to be shocking. And I was like, oh, okay, I mean, I guess. So yeah, that's the main gist and kind of part of the controversy, is that this is labeled as a romance. But anyway, the book is labeled as a romance, and I think that's kind of where the controversy started. I don't know how many people that were accusing it of glamorizing abuse actually read it. I think the different, like I said, the fact that it's called romance, just different aspects of it, and the way it's marketed in the book world, I think kind of shocked people and said it was glamorizing abuse. But I'll get into a little bit more of that once I'm done talking about these differences, because that's just something that I want to have like a really focused conversation on at the end. But anyway, so one of the things that ends up getting, I watched the film first and then I read the book. And one of the things that also ended up being kind of a plot twist in the film is that we end up finding out that Lily's dad was abusive towards her mom growing up. And we learn this later on. So the film is told in flashbacks. We flash back and forth between Lily now and Lily then. And it's during one of the flashbacks that we see her father beating up her mother. So we have no idea, for those of us that hadn't read the book, we have no idea that her father was abusive as well. In the book, like, she meets Atlas on this rooftop and they have their conversation, their naked truths conversation, when they reveal like the naked truths about each other. And like, one of the first things she tells him is like, I had an abusive dad and I was just at his funeral and I know what to say. And I was like, wow, all right. So we're just learning this about her immediately. Okay, all right, let's do this. It was just kind of a shock because it's like this slow build up to it in the film, and the book just goes right out and says it. But yeah, and you know, one of the other twists we end up finding out in the film. So again, these are actual twists if you see the film first, is that her father ends up beating up Atlas. Atlas is her very first boyfriend, her first love, whatever. He beats up Atlas to the point where like he gets beat up pretty bad. And this is the other thing she reveals on the roof. She's like, my father was abusive to my mother and he ended up beating up my first boyfriend. So it was like, whoa, okay, we're just learning all this right up front. All right. Which I did like that change in the film, that we're getting these flashbacks and these little build-ups to Lily, and that we're actually getting to see this thing. Because one of the things that really bugged me about the book is that this book is not told in flashbacks per se. So how we get Lily's backstory is through Lily's old diary entries. Lily, just as she meets Ryle, she starts like reminiscing about her first boyfriend. And so she decides to go back and read her diary. And the chapter will literally be like, I felt like reading my diary. And then we cut to her reading the diary. And that's it. So it's not very interesting to read. It's a lot of telling us and not showing us. So I do like that the film actually showed us these flashbacks as opposed to just these, is essentially what ends up being exposition through diary format. The most annoying, I'm just gonna say annoying thing is who Lily is writing these diary entries to. So Lily writes these diary entries as letters to Ellen. Yeah, Ellen DeGeneres. I can definitely see why they did not keep her love of Ellen DeGeneres for the movie, considering everything that happened with Ellen and her not being considered a nice person anymore. But it's just like very jarring for this teenage girl to see how much this teenage girl loves Ellen. I mean, don't know that it necessarily makes sense, because I mean everyone is different, but like I didn't really know who Ellen DeGeneres was until I was an adult. I'm sure there are some teenagers out there that like looked up to Ellen and loved her, but that definitely seems more like Colleen Hoover love for Ellen DeGeneres as opposed to like an organic, what an actual teenage girl might like. So I don't know, just throwing that out there. But anyway, so in the film, like right from the start, Lily is preparing to open up her flower shop, and in the book, the first few chapters, she starts off as like someone who works in marketing, and then she just decides to buy a flower shop because she genuinely loves flowers. And again, that was kind of a good thing that they changed in the film. They just streamlined that, because it's like there was nothing like her being starting off as a marketing person added nothing to the story other than she was a marketing person, and then she was like, you know what, I like flowers, so I'm gonna open up my flower shop. But anyway, while she's fixing up her flower shop, she ends up falling and breaking her ankle, and this leads to one of the big red flags of Ryle in the book. But this doesn't happen in the film. She doesn't break her ankle. And additionally, her mom, after her father dies, her mom is like, well, there's no reason for me to stay in Maine when you're in Boston, so I'm gonna move to Boston. So her mom moves to Boston, and this does not happen in the film. I think that's just, I mean, I don't know why they changed that, but the mom is just like not an important character in the film. So, I mean, that's probably why. But anyway, so in the book, again, so like 6 months pass between Lily and Ryle meeting, and then them, like they meet, and then 6 months pass without any contact of each other. And then Alyssa, who's Ryle's sister, walks in and is like, I want to work for you at this flower shop. And Lily's like, great. She hires Alyssa, and then after she breaks her ankle, like she reunites with Ryle, because like Ryle and Alyssa's husband Marshall come in, and she's like, oh my gosh, my boss just broke her ankle. And then so she has to like, Alyssa keeps working on getting the flower shop ready to open while Lily is on bed rest. And cue the red flag that we do not get in the film concerning Ryle. And that is, in the book, since she is on bed rest. Okay, so one of the things that is kind of like I said, Orlando and I watched the film first, and during the Naked Truth session in the film, so they only reveal 2 naked truths. They don't reveal everything that I told you they revealed in the book. Like, she just reveals that she slept with a homeless kid as a teenager. He was the first person she ever slept with. And then his naked truth is he's like, I want to F you. And it's supposed to be played off as like, it kind of seemed like they were going for like, ooh, that's hot. And I'm like watching that, I was like, might that work on someone? Sure. I don't know that it would work on a lot of people though, and the fact that we're supposed to think it's cute is just not working. But anyway, so he does say that in the book as well. He's like, I want to F you. And then something happens and they end up going their separate ways for 6 months. But anyway, so she's on bed rest. She lives in an apartment building. And one day while she's in her apartment, she hears knocking and she goes to the door and it's Ryle. And she's like, how do you know where I live? And he's like, you told me when we met 6 months ago where you lived, but you never told me your apartment number. So I literally knocked on 29 doors to find out where you live, to tell you that I just have to have sex with you, because if I don't, I'm just gonna lose my mind. And she's like, oh, I mean, I've never had anyone knock on 29 doors just to have sex with me. Like, okay, come in. And then she's like, I need to get ready because I haven't like groomed in a while because I haven't needed to. So just wait for me while I like shower and get ready and groom and stuff. And when she comes back out, he's asleep in her bed. And yeah, but it's one of those things that's like, again, are we supposed to think this is cute, or are you intentionally like showing us that Ryle is like, I'm reading this and I'm like, that is a red flag. But honestly, I'm not sure if Colleen Hoover intended that to be a red flag. If I'm being quite honest, like, I think that's she was trying to show Ryle's charm and can-do attitude. I don't know. That is just my speculation. I feel like that was not meant to be a red flag, but I'm reading this and I'm like, that is a red flag. So if anyone is listening to this, that is not cute. Like, that's a red flag. Okay. Like, no one should be that horny to sleep with you that they have to knock on 29 doors. Like, they know where you work. They can get your number, and if you want to have a one night stand with this person, you can figure that out later. But there's ways to do this that are not creepy, and that was really creepy. But anyway, let's flash forward to like I said, that doesn't happen in the book. They kind of just in the film. I'm sorry. The whole knocking on the 29 doors doesn't happen in the film. She doesn't break her ankle in the film. They kind of just start finding ways to connect little by little, and still a red flaggy kind of way, because it reaches a point where he keeps saying like, let's do it. Like, I just need to have sex with you, and then I'll be able to get you out of my system. Like, let's just do. And again, I think it's supposed to be like going for charming, but it's not. But anyway, so the different red flags are waving in the book and the film. But anyway, let's flash forward to Alyssa's birthday party. Alyssa invites Lily over to her birthday party, and Alyssa lives in the same building as Ryle. Ryle lives on the building of the rooftop where Lily was on that first. Like, Ryle does live there, so he has access to the rooftop. I still don't know how Lily got up there, but anyway, we have the gay friend trope who only shows up for this one scene and we never see him again, and he's just there to like plump up Lily's breasts so that she looks hot at this party, and then he leaves and we never hear from this gay best friend again. So gay best friend that's only there for that reason. But anyway, so she takes her gay best friend to Alyssa's party, and at one point, like, Ryle shows up and he just like scoops her up in his arms, and he's like, I gotta take this girl somewhere. And he just takes her to like his bedroom. And the gay best friend's just like, yeah, you go, girl. And it's like, you're just gonna let him take her away? Like, you're not gonna question who this guy is? Like, I would understand if she had been like flirting with him all night, or she said, hey, like, I'm interested in this guy. But like, I don't know if it's because like the gay stereotype of like, you go, girl, like, go get your man. But it's like, I think any gay best friend, like any straight girlfriend, would be like, what do? You can't just take her to your room. We don't know who you are. And if at that point she was like, no, it's fine, I want to go with him, that'd be one thing. But he's just like, he like literally just takes her to his room, and the gay best friend is like, okay, you go, girl. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure he would be like, do I know you? No, you can't just take my friend away from me, like when she's like semi-intoxicated. Anyway, I guess I am getting a lot more heated up than I thought I was, but you know what? What's gonna get me heated is just how not well written this book is, as opposed to the glamorization of the abuse. And we'll get into my thoughts on that. But anyway, yeah, this book is just so okay. Okay, going back on the topic of names really quick, because okay. So her name is Lily Blossom Bloom. She's a florist. Okay. And then I saw like 2 different YouTube comments that said basically the same thing. And I was like, wow, yeah. So again, Lily Blossom Bloom, florist. Ryle is there to just get riled up. Atlas is her whole world. Can you be more on the nose with these names? No, you cannot. Like, moving on. So they do not end up sleeping together at Alyssa's party either in the book or the film. And the gay best friend is only in the book. He's not in the film. Like, I don't blame them for cutting out this pointless gay friend who's just there to be a stereotype. But okay, this is my comment for this next thing that I'm going to share with you. This has nothing to do with the difference. With this book, I was literally just writing things down that I was like, what the hell did I just read? And this is one of those moments. So again, they don't sleep with each other at Alyssa's party. She ends up going home. She ends up reading another one of her diary entries, and she's talking about Atlas, and she's showing Atlas how to garden. And then Atlas has Lily showing him like how to compost, and for whatever reason, there's cow manure in this compost. Side note, there's no manure in compost. That's not what composting is. Manure could be in like fertilizer, but not compost. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is they're like composting with this cow manure, and he starts oh my gosh, he starts rubbing cow manure on her arms, and she literally says, Ellen, I've never felt so turned on in my life. I don't know what I just read. I don't even have any other comments other than what the hell. So let's just move on, because what the hell. So in the film, Ryle lives in the apartment next to Alyssa. In the book, Ryle lives in the same apartment as Alyssa. So in the film, after the party, Alyssa shows up to Ryle's apartment with coffee, and she finds Lily there, and she's like, oh my gosh, like, you can't sleep with my brother. He doesn't do well with commitments. Like, he's gonna break your heart. Like, don't be with him. And then, but in the book, as I said, Ryle lives with Alyssa and Marshall, and the next morning Lily wakes up and she's in the kitchen, and Alyssa shows up, and she's just like, oh hey, what's going on, girl? Like, nice to see you. She's like completely unfazed by the fact that like Lily's in her, like, spent the night with Ryle. I will say Alyssa in the book is a lot like Alyssa in the film is a little bit more. I'm glad they changed this as well, because Alyssa in the book is a lot more like, oh, my brother's so great, like, he's gonna break your heart, but since there's something about you that like he actually wants to date you, like, once she gets used to the idea that, like, I mean, no, like in the film she's like, oh my gosh, you can't date my brother, and in the book she's like, oh yeah, like, I know what kind of person my brother is, but like, date him, it'll be fine. And she's like, aren't you okay, whatever. Like, I love my brother to bits, but like, if he was an a-hole, I would tell people that he was an a-hole. Like, no. Anyway, whatever. So in the book, eventually, like, after the party, like, he comes over again and they finally sleep together. In the film, Lily waits until they're officially a couple before sleeping with him, and this is just like a very clear boundary that she sets in both the book and the film. She ends up changing her mind, which is fine in the book, but she's very like, I don't believe in one night stands. I need to know that like someone genuinely loves me and is committed to me in order for me to like sleep with them. And she ends up changing her mind in the book, like I said, which is fine. You're allowed to change your mind about those sort of things. In the film, she doesn't, and they don't sleep together until they're officially a couple. What was that? Oh, sorry. If you heard that, that was my dad is drilling, so just if you hear the drill going on, sorry about that. Perks of still recording while I'm home with my family. So okay, this is another one of the moments in the book that I was like, what? So okay, Ryle is gonna meet Lily's mom for the first time. they're getting ready to go to the restaurant, him and Lily. And he's like, you know, my lips are my favorite feature of yours. And she's like, oh, I gotta watch you around my mom then, because we have the exact same lips. Who says that? Like, what the hell? Who says that? No, no, no. Like, I get told I look a lot like my mom. Doesn't mean I'm gonna, like, bring that into a conversation with, like, no, 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 no. Like, why, no, why? Why? Anyway, what does that say? I'm sorry, I'm reading my notes and I'm trying to decipher what this says. So this is definitely concerning Atlas, but since I can't even decipher this note, it's not important. Let's move on. So in the book, not Ryle, Atlas spends the night several times. So Atlas does not have a home. He's squatting in the house across the street from Lily. His parents are like, they don't really care about him, so he decides it's better to just like squat and figure things out than stay living with them. So once he and Lily start having this connection, but he ends up spending the night several times. And in the film, that's not really implied. He does go over every day to like use her shower and eat and stuff, but in terms of like spending the night, he doesn't really do that. In the book, Lily, so as I said, in the book, Ryle lives with his sister Alyssa. So when he and Lily become an official couple, Ryle ends up moving in with Lily at her apartment. And he ends up, so in the film, Alyssa and Marshall have their baby. And it is like after Alyssa gives birth and everyone's in the hospital room just being like, congratulations, look at your baby, she's so cute. Ryle proposes to Lily right there in front of Alyssa and Marshall and the baby. But in the book, Ryle ends up proposing to Lily after she meets his parents. The parents don't exist in the film, but she meets his parents, and then she and Alyssa are like having a conversation, and she's like, I'd marry Ryle right now. And Ryle's like, I would marry you too. Let's get married. And that's how he proposes to her. And yeah, it's after she meets his parents, not after the birth of the baby. But anyway, one thing that I didn't like about the film, so there's 3 instances of abuse in the book and the film, and the first 2 instances of abuse in the film are kind of ambiguous. You're not really sure if it was on purpose or if it was a legit accident. I knew it because, like I said, I already knew what the controversy was. But even watching the film, I was like, wait, so was it an accident? And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm guessing this is going to end up being the plot twist of the film, is that it's abuse. It's legit abuse as opposed to like, was it or was it not? And in the film, in the book, it's very clearly abuse. Like so the first instance, which is kind of played ambiguously in the book too, I will say that, is Ryle has like a big surgery coming up and he's making a casserole, and when it's done, like he reaches for the casserole without putting on enough in it, and he touches the thing and it burns his hand, and he starts freaking out because he has this big surgery and he has this burnt hand. And Lily starts laughing because she's kind of tipsy and it's funny. So he ends up hitting her and she's kind of like, what just happened? And he's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to. It was an accident, but you were laughing at me and blah, blah, blah. So it is played, that first instance is played a little bit more ambiguously in the book. So she's kind of like, I don't know if he says it was an accident. I was kind of tipsy, so I'm not really sure if it was or not, but I'm going to choose to believe him. But if it happens again, I'm not like, that's it. Like, I'm not going to allow this to happen again. In the second instance of abuse, he pushes her down the stairs. And in the book, she's very aware that he pushes her down the stairs. And he keeps trying to gaslight her and saying, I didn't push you down the stairs. It was an accident. And she's very much like, no, like I felt you put your hands on me and forcibly like force me down, like you pushed me down the stairs. Like there was intention behind that push. I felt it. And he keeps trying to be like, no, it was an accident. And in the film, it kind of cuts. So we see her like run up to him at the stairs, and then she gets in front of him and then she screams and it cuts to her in bed as he's like icing a wound that she got on her forehead after she fell. And it's kind of like the film definitely plays it a lot more ambiguously. In the book, she's very aware, definitely the second time, that it's like abuse. And so I wish that the film hadn't made it a plot twist. Like, as I said, this ends up being the plot twist of the film. Again, not much of a plot twist, but it ends up being the plot twist where she's looking back on the instances of abuse. She's like, I'm not misremembering, or he lied to me. He managed to gaslight me and made me think that these were accidents and they weren't. And I wish that they had made it very clear, the way it is clear in the book, that this was abuse. Because I feel like making it very clear that it is abuse makes it, there's just a lot more nuance in that, and we see the reasons why Lily decided to stay, and as opposed to kind of just, I don't know, I feel like it made her staying with him a lot more, I don't know how to phrase it, but there's a lot of reasons why people stay, whether it be manipulation, whether they're scared of leaving, threats, whatever, whatever it is. And there's a little bit more of that nuance in the book because we see why she decides to stay. And in the film, it's kind of just like, well, of course she's staying. We don't know if he was actually hitting her not until plot twist, he really was hit. So I don't like that the film changed that. And yeah, that's something I'll go a little bit more into in my wrap up, but that's something that I just wanted to bring up because it was something that kind of, like, after reading it in the book and just having that little extra nuance, I wish that the film had kept it. But anyway, in the book, when Ryle and Lily get married, it ends up being a shotgun wedding in Vegas. In the film, if I'm remembering correctly, it's like a courthouse wedding. It's definitely not a Vegas wedding. But anyway, after they're married and they go back, sorry, this is before the wedding, but after the first time Ryle puts his hands on Lily, after, he reaches in there and he burns his hand and he hits her, they go to the restaurant. So when Ryle meets Lily's mom for the first time, they go to a restaurant that ends up being owned by Atlas, called Bib, which stands for Best in Boston. In the film, they changed this to Roots. I'm glad they changed it to Roots. I don't like the name Bib. But anyway, they realize that they go to this restaurant and Lily finds out that Ryle works there. At the time, she thinks he's just a waiter. She doesn't realize that he's the owner slash head chef. But later on, after the first time that Ryle puts his hands on Lily, he and Lily and Alyssa and Marshall end up going on a double date to Bib because Alyssa really wants to try that restaurant. And while they're having this double date, Atlas sees the bruise on Lily, like the purple eye that Lily has from where Ryle hit her. And he sees that Ryle's knuckles are screwed up, whatever happens to your knuckles after you punch someone. He sees that there's something wrong with his knuckles. So he puts two and two together and confronts Ryle at the restaurant and is like, and they end up getting into this fight, which Atlas isn't much better when it comes to the red flags. I just want to say, just overall, Atlas is very much aware that Lily's mom was abused. Like, he had heard the incidents involving when her dad would beat up her mom. Like, he heard those, and so he knows. And I can understand why he's worried for Lily, because he knows, like, the history that she grew up in, and like any good friend, like, if I found out that, like, my friend was getting beat up by their boyfriend, I would want to intervene as well. However, you don't intervene by confronting the abuser in front of the victim. Like, you're just asking for another abusive situation to happen when they get home. So that's not the way to help someone that's in an abusive relationship. But anyway, whatever. So they end up getting in a fight, Ryle and Atlas, and Ryle, like, and then, like, Lily had already said, like, oh, my first boyfriend's name was Atlas. And then while they're getting in this fight, like, Lily's like, Atlas, stop. And he's like, oh, so this is Atlas. And then so that, of course, just makes things worse. So Lily's like, I didn't know that he worked there. And that's why I tried to, like, get us to go to a different restaurant than that one. But you, like, you insisted that it be that one, so whatever. And she's like, but I promise I won't go there again, and I'm not in contact with him, blah, blah, blah. So in the film, after the confrontation between Atlas and Ryle, Atlas ends up going to the flower shop, and Alyssa's like, so if we can't go to that restaurant anymore, why is he allowed to come here? And Lily's like, I'll get rid of him, don't worry about it. So, but Atlas is showing up to give Lily his phone number in case she ever needs help. But in the book, again, Alyssa's a much better character in the film than she is in the book. In the book, Atlas shows up to the flower shop, and again she's like, why is he allowed to be here? And Lily's like, I'm sorry. And Alyssa's like, no, it's all right. I'm okay with him being here because his food is so good. I forgive him for like getting in a fight with my brother, which, like, okay, odd, sure. But anyway, after the second instance of abuse, this is where Ryle pushes Lily down the stairs. So in the film, so we end up finding out at one point that Ryle and Alyssa had a brother at one point named Emerson. In the film, Alyssa's the one that tells Lily what happened to Emerson. And so after Lily confides in Alyssa, like, hey, your brother's been abusing me. And so, and Alyssa, she's like, your brother's been abusing me. And Alyssa's like, okay, well, don't get back together with him. And then while they're having this conversation, Lily's like, so what happened to Emerson? Alyssa is the one that reveals what happened to Emerson to Lily. And what ended up happening is that Ryle, when he and Emerson were little boys, Ryle shot and killed Emerson because they found their dad's gun, and he's a little boy, so he was like playing with it, and he ended up accidentally shooting Emerson and he died. But in the book, Alyssa the Enabler, she's like, I think, mind you, Ryle's not telling the whole truth, but it's still like, he admits that like something happened between him and Lily that caused them to fight. And Alyssa the Enabler's like, Ryle, you have to tell Lily about Emerson. That way she understands what's going on, or what happens to you because of what happened. And then she leaves. And Ryle's the one that ends up telling Lily about Emerson. And he's like, yeah, it's because of that trauma, because of what I did to my brother, that like I have these emotional blackouts in which I don't realize what I'm doing, and that's what happened last night, and I'm so sorry that I pushed you down the stairs. And this is at, like, first he tries to gaslight her, and then he apologizes for it, and he blames it on his emotional blackouts. And that's why Lily decides to stay that time around, because she's like, oh, okay, he can't control himself, like he has these emotional blackouts, he doesn't realize what he's doing, like, I can fix him. Ladies, you can never fix him, just want to say. But when all of this happens, they're already married at this point. But after they're married, and he ends up buying the apartment next, or not next to Alyssa, but he ends up buying an apartment in the same building as Alyssa in the book, and that's how she ends up in the same building as Alyssa and Marshall, because remember, at this point they've been living in her apartment, but then he ends up like surprising her with an apartment. Which, again, this is always taken to be like this cute kind of show of, it's buying an apartment, buying a home, buying anything like that is it's always a conversation you should have with your partner. Like, you should never just buy something that you should never buy a home without consulting your partner. But anyway, so this is how she ends up moving into Alyssa's building. In the film, she moves in with Ryle since he has his own apartment from the beginning. But anyway, in the film, the breaking point for Lily ends up, the third instance of abuse is when Ryle, so in the film, he finds her, so in the film, Lily is one of the top 10 new businesses in Boston, and Ryle has her read like the review for Roots. Again, that's the name of Atlas's restaurant in the film. He has her read the review because Atlas won the #1 spot on that top 10 new businesses list, and he ends up revealing why he called the restaurant Roots, and he alludes to Lily. And it is at this point that Ryle there's a tattoo that Lily has that's in the shape of a heart that Atlas made her a heart out of, he like carved it for her, and so the heart tattoo is in the shape of this carved heart. And so Ryle ends up like trying to bite it off, and then he ends up trying to sexually assault her. This does happen in the book too, but in the book, Alyssa gives birth to her and Marshall's baby Riley, that they named after Ryle, because whatever. Again, giving these kids great names. Anyway, so Alyssa has just given birth to Riley, and it's like this really happy, momentous occasion. And then Lily goes home, and this ends up happening with the whole reading the review of the top 10 lists, and he does end up trying to sexually assault her. In the film, the baby's birth was where Ryle proposed to her. In the book, the baby's birth is what leads to the final instance of abuse. In the film, after this happens, Lily manages to get away from Ryle, and she goes to Roots and asks Atlas for help. In the book, Atlas had given her his phone number, so she calls Atlas, and Atlas actually goes to her and Ryle's apartment and picks her up and takes her to the hospital. So so we end up finding out while she's at the hospital getting checked out by the doctors and stuff that she's pregnant. And the film pretty much like fast forwards after this to her back in her own apartment, and she's like getting ready for the arrival for the baby. And then she needs help building the crib, so that's when she calls and talks to Ryle for the first time since he tried to sexually assault her, and he builds the crib for her. In the book, so after this happens, after he tries to sexually assault her, he's like, I'm sorry for what I did to you, I'm sorry I hurt you, I'm gonna go to England for a few months to give you your space. And then so he like goes to England, and he comes back unexpectedly a lot sooner than he said, and then that's when he finds out that she's pregnant. But he goes back to living with Alyssa, and then when she needs help, he just like goes downstairs to like built the crib for her. And then, yeah, like it ends with Lily giving birth to her daughter, Emerson. Wait till I tell you her full name, because we get her full name in the book, but in the film, we just find out her name is Emerson. Yes, she named her daughter after her abusive husband's dead brother. Anyway, so as I said, in the book, she and Atlas, she ends up getting Atlas into Ellen, and they love Ellen DeGeneres, and so they end up like a common phrase between them ends up being like keep on swimming. So like they say that to each other to like motivate each other along the way. And so that is how in the book we end up with Emerson Dory. I really wish I was making that up, but I'm not. Emerson Dory. We got Lily Blossom Bloom, Ryle, who's there to rile things up, Atlas, who's her whole world, and Emerson Dory. Just, remind her to just keep swimming. So in the film, in the book and the film, she gives birth to Emerson, and then it ends with her saying, I want a divorce. And he's like, no, we can work things out. And she's like, what would you do if your daughter came to you one day and told you, Dad, my husband hit me? What would you do if your daughter came to you one day and said, Dad, my partner pushed me down the stairs. Dad, my partner tried to sexually assault me. And Ryle's like, I would tell her to leave. And then he leaves. And then we flash forward to, in the book, Lily is dropping Emerson off at Ryle's. They're now divorced, but they have joint custody, so it's Ryle's turn to have her. So she's dropping Emerson off with Ryle, and then she bumps into Atlas, and she's like, guess what? It starts with us, because that's the name of the sequel. In the film, she bumps into him, and there's like still this connection between them. And so, yeah. All right. So some other major changes that really alter this course of the book and the film. In the book, Lily is 23 and Ryle is 29. And in the film, they're both aged up to Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's age. So they're like mid to late 30s. And the reason for that is that Colleen Hoover herself has said many times, she's like, the trendy thing to do at the time was to write books about college students or college-aged students. So I didn't realize that Ryle was way too young to be like a successful neurosurgeon. There's no way he would be 29 and like a successful neurosurgeon. So we had to age them up to the film to accommodate that. So that fixes that. So one of the things that like kind of bugged me is like another red flag, and this is just in general, is if like you're still hung up on your ex, like still have very, very strong feelings for them years down the line, Like that's kind of a red flag. Like there should reach a point in which, like, that doesn't mean that you can't look back fondly on your ex, or like if you reconnect you might end up falling for each other again or anything like that. But just in terms of, like, you still have feelings for them, like the strong feelings that Lily and Atlas have for each other, like that is not healthy. It's really not healthy. But in the book, I was able to excuse it a little bit more because they were so young. Like they're 23, and they were their first, like, they were their first loves, their first boyfriend girlfriend situation, just a lot of firsts. And this happened while they were still in high school. So, I mean, 23 is like quite a bit of time has happened, but it's still kind of like you're still kind of in that age where like you can look like where you can kind of romanticize like your high school boyfriends and girlfriends a little bit more than when you're like at this point they're in their 30s. So it's like it's been more than 10 years. Like I think that's a little bit that's a little bit, you know, you need to watch out for that. And so those were like the other major changes. But all right, my final verdict on whether or not I think this glamorizes abuse. I don't. As I said, I have a lot of passionate feelings because of how this book was written. It's not written very well. I don't know that I am interested in reading any more Colleen Hoover books, and after reading this one, I really don't understand the hype. I really don't. But in terms of, does this glamorize abuse? No, I really don't think so. To me, glamorizing abuse, to recap on After We Collided, to me, that is glamorizing abuse because it is a bunch of behavior that is not okay, that is not acceptable, that we should be telling people like this is straight up abuse, but we're disguising it as love. That is not love. In this one, Lily is very much aware that what Ryle is doing to her is abuse and that it is not okay and that she should not put up with it. The first instance of abuse, she stays because she isn't sure if it was, she knows that Ryle shouldn't have put his hands on her, but because he tells her it was an accident and she was a little bit tipsy, so her memory is a little bit foggy, she's not sure if he actually did abuse her or not, so she stays. The second time, she's ready to leave him, but after she finds out about Emerson and his trauma and the fact that he's having these emotional blackouts, she stays for that because she again thinks he doesn't realize what he's doing and we can get him the help to like fix this. And again, that is not how that works. The moment someone puts their hands on you, you need to leave. And I know it's not always that easy, but I'm telling you now, it's not going to change. It's not going to get better. So you need to leave. And then the third instance, after the third instance, Lily is still like, she's aware again, what he did is not okay and that she should not put up with that. But she loves him and she's about to have a child with him. And there are a lot of people that stay in abusive relationships for that reason. They don't want to break up their families. They legitimately love this person. They don't want to break up with them. So those are the different reasons. But it is never like, he hit me because he loved me. He did this because he loved me. Oh, the fact that he tried to sexually assault me means that he loves, which is what After We Collided would do. This does not do that. This is not glamorizing abuse because she knows it's not okay. And it covers some of the reasons why someone might choose to stay. So no, I don't think it glamorizes abuse. I do think there's absolutely no, it is way too easy on Ryle. Like there's really no repercussion for Ryle other than she divorces him. But other than that, there's nothing. Like his sister doesn't hold him accountable. His best friend, who's Marshall, doesn't hold him accountable. He gets a daughter named after him, after his brother. Like if anything, I feel like this takes it way, way, way too easy on Ryle. And there should have been more of a I don't want to say punishment, but there should have been more repercussions for him than there ended up being. And that would be my main problem with the book, is that there just isn't enough repercussions for this abuser. But Colleen Hoover does have an author's note at the end in which she says that this book was inspired by her parents' relationship. Her dad was abusive towards her mom, and they ended up divorcing when Colleen was 2. And she dedicates the book to her father too. She dedicates it by saying, to my dad, who tried his very best not to show his worst. And I am not here to say what you should, or everyone chooses to have relationships with the people that hurt them for a variety of different reasons. Colleen chose to forgive her father and have a relationship with him, and that is the best choice that was for her. And if someone chooses the complete opposite of that, that's the perfect choice for you. I'm not here to say that one is better than the other. And so I feel like this does explain, and she does say in her author's note, like, while her dad was married to her mom, he was an alcoholic, which is what made him extremely abusive. And after the divorce, like, he got his act together, and he was not, like, he never abused her or her sisters, and he was not abusive with future partners either. So this is just one kind of abusive relationship in which maybe Ryle is like her father and he gets his act together, and he's never abusive towards their daughter, even though he was abusive towards her. So I think that's why people think that this glamorizes abuse, because of that portrayal. But this is based on Colleen's experiences. This is one kind of abusive relationship. So long story short, no, I don't think that this book or film ultimately glamorizes abuse, and this is told from a particular point of view. This is Colleen Hoover's point of view, and obviously her experience influenced how the story she decided to tell. But no, I don't think it glamorizes abuse. It does make it very clear that the abuse that Lily is experiencing is not okay, and it's not hiding as an act of love, like an After We Collided. And yes, I'm going to keep bringing that up because this is not the point of this episode. That being said, I can see why people feel like this glamorizes abuse, and I think this mainly stems from the way that the book and the film were promoted. It's kind of hard to not feel like it isn't glamorizing abuse when this is labeled as a romance book. And in terms of the film, I mean, we had, a pretty viral TikTok of Blake Lively telling people, grab your friends, wear your florals, and go watch the movie, as if this was going to be like a fun girls' night out rom-com type of thing. So yeah, definitely problematic in that sense. I don't know. Obviously, all of that promotional material did bug me, but I'm not here really to talk about that. Although I will say that that did make me angry. The way it was promoted made me angry. So I rated the film 3.5 stars, and I rated the book 3 stars as well. Well, 3 stars. So the winner is the film. But honestly, do I think this film and book glamorizes abuse? I already said no. The biggest crime for both of these, though, is just how dang boring they both were. The film was so slow and just so boring. And the book was just worse because it was so much telling and not showing, and those damn diaries entries to Ellen. Oh my gosh. So it was just boring. It was just boring. Boring. Honestly, you can skip either. You can skip both. In my opinion, you can skip both. You don't need to read them or see the film. But clearly I'm the minority in this. Colleen Hoover has a lot of devoted fans. This book has a lot of devoted fans. And as I said, Orlando and I watched this, and both of us were bored, but clearly this film was speaking to a lot of people, because at the end when Lily tells Emerson that it ends with us and she decides to ultimately break the cycle of abuse, we heard sniffling in the audience. So clearly there were some people that were getting hit hard by it. But in my opinion, it's not worth watching. It's not worth reading. But if you're one of those people that was, and I want to say that if you're one of those people that was clearly affected by this book or this film, you're allowed to feel that way. This is just my opinion. Your opinion does not have to match my opinion. And I just want to throw that out there because people get so defensive sometimes. But anyway, that is it for this episode. And felt like there was something else I wanted to add. but clearly it's not important. Thank you for tuning in. Leave a rating and a review and tell your friends all about this podcast. It means so much to have a little book versus movies community. And I'll see you next time. Bye.